Addiction, more than a substance. Much of the research from this speech has come from Dr. Brosvik's Drugs and Human Behavior class, the material I've been exposed to in class, Dr. Raymond's book Unchain Your Brain, as well as some personal struggles with addiction. How do people get hooked on a substance, whether legal or illegal? If one compares the history of the vervet monkeys on the island of St. Kitts, who are genetically predisposed to drinking, it is arguable that people are genetically predisposed to addiction. If heavy drinking runs in one's genetic background and one's family history, it is possible that person could develop an addiction to alcohol. Aside from predisposition, there are various other factors. Perhaps the most important is brain function. The way we treat our brains determines how our brains will treat us. Everything we consume, whether it be food, beverage, alcohol, legal or illegal drugs, cigarettes, etc., our daily activities, all of that affects our brain, and that in turn affects how we act as people. The prefrontal cortex is our commander-in-chief. When we're young, we don't have a strong PFC. Our brains will learn from experience if they're treated with care at a young age. Parents need to pay attention to this. What they do, their own behavior, how they treat or do not treat their children, what they feed and do not feed their children, what they do and do not discuss with their children could all have effects on the PFC. According to Dr. Raymond, adolescents typically have less efficient activity in the PFC because this part of the brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25. Until the age of 25, the brain is undergoing a process called myelinization, in which a protective substance called myelin wraps around the brain's neurons, helping the brain's nerve cells work up to 10 to 100 times more efficiently. So when drugs are used at a young age, it really affects the development of the prefrontal cortex. I didn't come from a broken home, but I started drinking coffee at the age of 13. I started drinking it heavily at the age of 19 when I started going to college. And I also started experimenting with tobacco, marijuana, alcohol, and hallucinogens between the ages of 17 and 24. I sparingly used hallucinogens, but I did start drinking heavily. It was everywhere in college. When I turned 21, drinking soon became an addiction. I'd wake up thinking about giving up drinking. I'd wake up thinking about drinking. I'd exhausted most of my funds. Was quite frequently late with rent money because of it. I had no savings account. I had every reason to stop drinking, yet I continued to do it. I also had a few near-death experiences between 2004 and 2010, one of which was a final wake-up call and luckily not a coffin. In hindsight, if I ate healthier, exercised more as a child and preteen, my addictions would have never kicked in full gear. I'd often raid the refrigerator and the pantry for the sweetest snacks after school. I was very young, and my metabolism helped me maintain the weight, but my emotional part of my brain, it ran my life. And then eventually, when I got older, it got to the point where I wouldn't even fight a craving, letting my limbic system and basal ganglia completely take over. I had no supervisor. So, if I wanted to drink, I'd go right to the bar. I wouldn't even reconsider. I have a supervisor now because I exercise and eat healthier. But my PFC function could be better. While drinking heavily, I religiously followed Dr. Raymond's 4 C's: craving, compulsion, loss of control, and continued use in spite of consequences. It's never too late to get sober, but it's tough for an addict to resist a relapse. Heroin addicts suffer rough withdrawal, making them feel very sick, so they continue to use in spite of the consequences, even when they've exhausted everything. Meth addicts experience extreme depression once they've beaten withdrawal because meth gave them such a dopamine rush that it became salient to the brain in terms of pleasure. One recovered meth addict studying in Dr. Brosvik's class mentioned that it takes the brain 6 months to 1 year to generate dopamine on its own terms. Drugs play with dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and endorphins. So, don't do drugs. Don't mess with these chemicals. There's natural ways to get high if you treat your brain right. Eat healthy. Avoid fast food. Limit foods high in fat and sugar. Eat fruits, vegetables. Drink green tea, but limit caffeine. Exercise. That will keep dopamine levels healthy, allowing one to stay focused. Also, exercise helps one tryptophan get to the brain faster than other proteins, allowing healthier serotonin levels. Consume food and beverages that are high in glutamic acid, such as raw spinach, oats, green tea, lentils. Take magnesium supplements, vitamin B supplements. Eat a small amount of chocolate every day to bring your brain natural pleasure. According to Dr. Raymond, cocoa has been shown to increase endorphin production in the brain. So by balancing all these chemicals, your brain will be healthier. Engage in brain healthy activity, exercise, learning a musical instrument, get educated, go back to school, especially for something you're passionate about. Applying yourself to something you learn increases and enhances healthy brain function. It's okay to get hooked on those types of activities. Doing so prevents relapse and it fights addictive cravings. Cravings are easily stifled when one's PFC can calm the limbic system without a struggle. The methadone program keeps heroin addicts addicted because it offers one solution, not considering psychological addiction. If an addict makes it through withdrawal cold turkey, he has to deal with the cravings and the depression. But during an inpatient rehabilitation, he should be forced to stimulate healthy brain function with proper diet and exercise. Rehab needs to be a process where a person learns his or her brain and how to take control of it, not sacrificing one addiction for the next. So, parents, be proactive. Get yourselves in check. Figure out what you're addicted to. Consider your own behaviors and how they affect your children. Make sure to have that conversation about drugs and alcohol, including inhalants, before they reach the experimental age that most adolescents reach. Rather than drugs and alcohol, a teen may get hooked on playing sports, academics, music, dating, all activities that promote healthy brain function, just so long as no serious head injuries are sustained. Give them tools to have a healthy brain, so that by the time the myelin is fully developed, they have a very strong prefrontal cortex.